let's just take a moment to appreciate this absolutely gorgeous jar. It is begging to have a terrarium put into it. I've already cleaned it out with some barkeeper's friend. So, next step with turning it into a terrarium is going to be adding in a false bottom. Now, a false bottom isn't technically necessary. However, it does improve the chances that your terrarium will survive and prosper long term. Now, of course, this isn't litter over here. This is nice, dry, pea-sized gravel. Pea-sized gravel is pretty good for a false bottom. That being said, your terrariums do typically end up being heavier with gravel as your false bottom. False bottoms like this ultimately serve two major purposes. The first is as a reservoir for water for all the plants, so the plants can dip their roots in there and get the water that they need. Other part is that it gets your substrate out of the water level, and that means that your terrarium should smell better. That smell is, of course, due to anaerobic bacterial growth, which means you have anaerobic conditions. A lot of your beneficial bacteria will die off, so ultimately you want this drainage layer. With the barrier in, let the magic in some soil. Magic can be a little messy. One thing that is very worth mentioning is that I have the back sloped up. This allows the terrarium to have a little bit more depth, at least the illusion of depth. The peace lily is the largest plant that I'm going to be adding, so I do need to add this first. The idea being that this is a showstopper, the plant that you look in and you're like, oh man, that is cool. So let's get that into the terrarium. This should be fun. Trimmed off a fairly large section of roots, which I don't love doing, but otherwise it won't fit. Next plant is this gorgeous syngonium, and I think we should be able to separate it if we just pull right here. Yeah, it'll separate there nicely. I was actually able to divide it a bit more nicely too, so awesome. Here's the one that's going to go in the jar. And there it is, nestled in right next to the peace lily. I also have these strands of royal hustler vine that I am going to be adding. These were generously donated by the salamander tank. These are all down to the bare root. You can start putting these into the terrarium. Now, the question for this terrarium isn't just what's available, but what is looking healthy enough to grow inside of a terrarium. So for instance, with this moss here, the first layer you can see is pretty much dead, the tan brownish, but beneath it there is a nice little layer of moss that is surviving. I think if I leave that in here though, it'll survive a little bit better and we can use it somewhere else. And here's our selection. So I did choose a few that are slightly risky, specifically this one and this one. They're lower in the spot where I packed them up when I collected them, so they are a bit more damaged. Hopefully they will bounce back in a terrarium setting well enough. There we go, two birds, one stone. The peace lily kept falling over, and I also have been wanting to include some driftwood, so like I said, perfect little two birds, one stone. And last piece of moss we need to add. Let's take a tour of this gorgeous artwork. Down here we have some gorgeous pieces of moss, and also it looks like the oak leaf creeping fig that I added in, and the royal hustler. Then in the mid-ground we've got the polka dotted plants. Got one back here. Then over here, we've also got this larger pieces of moss over here, and the dead moss that I'm hoping will resurrect. We'll see. And as we've already talked about, we've got the Syngonium podophyllum back here, also in the midground, and sharing the background with a peace lily, which is entwined with the hardscape here.
That's all I'll be adding for now. I'm going to see how this grows over the next couple months. Next time you all will be seeing this will be after a year of developments. So don't forget to subscribe so you can find the follow-up nice and easily. Until then, take care and peace out.